Well, good morning, everybody. Our first animation here looks at the wind field by midday today. And this is going to be the way things are setting up with this high-impact winter storm that's going to be emerging out of the Rocky Mountains and cutting across parts of the Midwest. We will see very strong winds out of the west in the Columbia Basin, parts of eastern Oregon, down throughout California into the southwest. And winds today could be very strong coming off of parts of New Mexico or out of parts of New Mexico into Texas. And this is an area actually where we have a red flag warning today. The winds you see over here in parts of North Carolina are actually be quite dry. Humidity levels down around 30%, and there's actually the risk of some fire here. But it's the low that's curling up right here, coming out of the Rockies that will eject, that's going to get a lot of our attention. This whole pattern is going to stay active like this into the foreseeable future, and I'll talk about that more in just a few seconds. But I wanted to show you what these winds are expected to do. So this is a forecast of maximum accumulated wind gust from now through midday Thursday. So when you look at this, just remember this color range in through here is this like 40 to 60 mile an hour wind speed range. And so you can start to identify those areas that are expected to be extremely windy. For example, coming out of New Mexico into western Texas. And because this system will likely not be able to deliver moisture to this area, there's a pretty good chance we'll see more large dust storms and possibly the risk of wildfire spreading quickly. That's why the National Weather Service has red flag warnings out for that area. You then look here into parts of South Dakota, Iowa, even parts of Nebraska into Minnesota and Wisconsin, and the wind speeds here will be more than enough to satisfy the blizzard criteria, which is why on today's all hazards weather map, we actually have 3 different areas with blizzard warnings right now. Montana, this part of Wyoming, and this large section here of South Dakota, parts of Iowa, possibly clipping down into Nebraska, and then into Minnesota. And everywhere else that you see this kind of pink color, this is all where there's winter storm warning. So these are the wind advisories, red flag, fog, wind, and everything else out here is going to be all related to winter storms. So this pattern is going to be a very high impact. It's going to impact a lot of things in a negative way, like travel and just quality of life. But I have to be honest with you, this pattern to me it's a massive benefit. And the benefit is coming for some places that desperately need the moisture at this time of year to be there for spring. So let's talk about it. The problem side of this first. The map over here on the left shows the 72-hour probability of getting at least a tenth of an inch of ice. We're going to keep an eye on this corridor right in through here. Models have keyed in on that since last week, and it seems to be pretty consistent. That is the region through which we have to be on the lookout for the risk of ice. Now this is our first kind of snow map to look at. This one's showing you the probability of getting at least 1 foot of snow. So 12 inches or more. Now the west, this is just the beginning for the west, but it's this area right through here with this storm system I want to keep a close eye on. From here, let's go take a look at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for severe storms tomorrow. They got a narrow corridor coming out of the Red River Valley at the south, almost up where the Illinois River cuts into Missouri, a little bit north of that, toward Hannibal. But this whole corridor, as the system kind of rolls through the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes, will drag a front through this area, increasing the risk of some strong to severe storms in this corridor. That's tomorrow on Wednesday. But here's the latest update from the National Digital Forecast Database. When I look at these numbers and try to compare them to other models and other snow ratios, I would caution to say that this broad area that you see here of way more than 10 inches might be on the high side. It's not to say there isn't the potential for 10 to 18 inches of snow out of this. But this is a very, very large area through which the National Digital Forecast Database, this is NOAA, this is their official forecast, suggests we could get some heavy snow. So I want you to see the corridor and understand that this is definitely there in the potential, and I'll show you the west in just a few moments. But with the Colorado low track, everything south of this is all going to be rain. Some of it's going to be very, very heavy rain. Now let's compare where that snow is going to fall to where it's been falling this year. We did this in last night's in-depth report, but I'd like to zoom in on the Midwest first here. Let's actually blow that up a little bit more. So what we're looking at here, the numbers represent departure from normal. So where this snow is coming through, we just kind of generally outline the area, something like that, although maybe I should put that line down a little bit farther to the south. You do notice that there are parts of South Dakota that are in deficit, but there are places in southern South Dakota, getting into Nebraska, and parts of Minnesota that just feel like winter has never stopped. But what I'm excited about is there's a lot of water in that snow. And that water is going to get down after it melts and help replenish some of our fall drought, our remnant fall drought that's in this area. Where you come over to parts like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then into New England, where we're in major snow deficit this year, I don't see any snow coming to these areas anytime soon, but we do have some heavier snows coming into New England out of this next few systems as well. Heavy snows in the interior here. It doesn't appear to get down far enough south to hit the major metropolitan areas, but it's certainly going to stay in the interior. Now, in today's report, I also included an update on the comparison between 2022 and 2023 for western snowpack. We did that in last night's video as well, but if you want to see that again, take a look at the report. But we need to now just kind of dive into this system. So I'm going to start you off at 9 a.m. Central Time. We're going to watch the whole thing evolve here. So through the middle of the day today, getting into tonight, broad area along a warm front here of snow. Now remember, the low still hasn't even been ejected by tonight. It comes out into the plains tomorrow. This is 5 a.m., playing through noon. And this coloring through here represents, excuse me, where we could see some ice. So this is where we're going to have to watch out for the risk of those stronger storms. To the south of it, some heavy rain coming out of Missouri, southeastern Iowa, and Illinois. But the ice to the north of it and the very heavy snow just north of that. So later in the day tomorrow on Wednesday, that's when we could see the most significant banding out of this particular system. And it will eventually move by Wednesday night, getting into Thursday, and still on the backside of it, strong winds and more snow. Now, this is just the beginning of this, because as you can tell, if I just kind of rock back and forth, look at the west. Can you see the net motion there? There are deep troughs of low pressure here. And what's great about this particular setup is that the jet stream, we talked about this last night, has taken the split and moved it. It used to be here. Now it's much farther to the west, north of Hawaii. So that's allowing a subtropical component of the jet to come in like this, lows to follow out of the Gulf of Alaska and dive into the west. And about the only places that struggle to get moisture in this is going to be the Canadian Prairie. It's going to be the western high plains down here in Texas, and it'll be down across parts of the Gulf Coast into Florida. Everywhere in between is going to just get hammered with lots and lots of precipitation. So let's put it into some numbers here. This is the next 10 days of total accumulated precipitation from this morning's ECMWF run. And now you can identify those areas that are going to miss. The easier way to see this is to flip it over to the precipitation anomaly forecast, so difference from normal. And this is the influence of that subtropical ridge. I've been thinking about this subtropical ridge for what feels like weeks, and until I have evidence to suggest that that ridge is out, this pattern is probably going to be on a wash, rinse, repeat cycle, because there's enough cold air in the west. The split flow has moved west, and the southeast ridge has been dominant, and there's no upstream blocking to kick all this out. So the net effect is we're going to be seeing systems like this continue to roll through, and I want to show them to you on the European model. We're just going to focus on one model today to get the ideas down. So this is through Wednesday. There it is. There's the large system. We then play into Thursday. It exits through Ontario and Quebec. That's when we could get that heavy snow, see it coming into the interior of New England. But watch these lows curl down along the west coast. This is this Thursday into Friday. And what do? Well, as that high pressure moves across the country, that's the cold air, we just rebound quickly and let another low eject. So where does it come out? This is now next Sunday into Monday, right in that same area. Now, as we mentioned, because these lows are basically following this track around the subtropical ridge, the snow will be pretty far to the north in the northern plains and the upper Midwest. This is a lot of rain for this particular area, not snow. You have to have a trough that digs. These are all lifting. But watch what's following behind it next Monday. So as this low cuts over the Great Lakes, another one dives into California. And it's going to do the same thing and eject at some point, next Thursday. So we're on this pace of like 2 large winter storms per 10 days. That's what the models seem to be advertising right now. And just to show you what the West is expecting out of all of these, because the lows are skirting the coast, not diving into the mountains, we could see, up to 2 feet of snow in the Cascades, and then 2 to 4 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada, and that includes what's going on into the Central Rockies here. Good snow from Montana. This is an area that needed to be filled in. We're seeing better snow there, but this is critical to the snowpack and what it'll do when we melt it in spring and summer for western U.S. water resources. So that's why there's a net positive to all of this. Week 2 continues to stay wet. I mean, the pattern didn't change. So we continue to see the wetter places staying wet where they are this week. All right. From here, though, just a reminder as to where some of the cold air is coming from. I showed this in last night's in-depth report, but the Arctic air that is coming into Montana is truly Arctic. When I call it that, I mean that's its source region. It came right out of the Arctic Ocean. It is on its way here. So take a look at the temperatures today. Whoops, there we go. This is today's max temperatures getting into tomorrow. That's Wednesday. So we're going to have 80s in the Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley, 70s up here toward Indiana and Ohio, and then struggling to get above 0 Fahrenheit, for high temperatures in Montana. As we play this into Thursday, that's probably the greatest extent of the cold air. Models did back off on the potential for seeing 90s in parts of like Virginia, North Carolina, but still likely going deep into the 80s with temperatures 30 degrees above normal, while they're 40 degrees colder than normal in the northern plains. And then the high pressure builds in behind this system, so the cold air advances, and then it pops right back up with warmth again into early next week. That's what we've got. This southeast ridge is so dominant. So stretching this out for 15 days, this is the 5-day sliding window of temperature anomalies. And you'll just notice this pattern, as I mentioned, until that southeastern ridge is out, we just don't shake it. It just sits and stays that way. In today's report at the end, we do talk about what's going on in South America. The latest model trend is much drier north, unlike Mato Grosso. This will likely push harvest rates for soybeans and planting rates of corn up and just get them finished up. Continues to be extremely wet in central Brazil into Paraguay. This has been the area that has just had non-stop precipitation for what feels like about 40 days. And into Argentina, although the temperatures are rebounding now, we do see drier conditions for much of the next 10 days, but those temps are coming back up pretty quickly. Final couple things in the report. We do discuss the European weeklies for March, and again, I think overdone on the risk of colder air here, but certainly got it right there. But you notice the pattern looks very much like the next 15 days, and that pattern will persist as long as that southeast ridge is there. And lastly, in the report, we do go over again the latest update on the probability of seeing El Nino return by late summer into fall and possibly into winter. And the models kind of double down on that, really giving us a strong signal there. So I'm stopping here. I'll talk to you again on Thursday. I will not be giving you a report tomorrow morning. I had to adjust my flights so that I missed the ice storm. So I have to leave very early, and I just won't have time to prepare this before I have to catch a flight. So we'll catch up with you on Thursday. Have a good one. Thanks.